Hello! In this video, I want to share how I repurposed my old Formica cabinets into an art bench, which is a very useful piece of furniture to me. This is not a tutorial, it is just a share of my process. I hope this inspires you and gives you a new approach to maybe incorporate into your own repurposing project so we can keep old furniture out of landfills. The cabinets I used were part of the island in the kitchen, which obstructed a lot of natural light in my already dark kitchen. So my solution was to demolish the island. It was a lot of fun. After the demo, the table replaced the island, which allowed more light in, and the cabinets sat on the side for a little while. First, I had to fix one of the cabinets. The side panel had come off and it was falling apart from being moved around so many times. I reinforced the glue by mixing in sawdust. This makes it a super strong bond. After the gluing, I brad nailed it and with my circular saw ripped the material that made the toe kick all around the unit. Then I strapped it and let it dry overnight. I cut the bottom of the other two cabinets in the same manner, so there will be no toe kicks all around. I flipped the 3 units on the back and screwed and glued 2x4s to the bottom. Then I added heavy weights and let them dry thoroughly. I used the existing screw holes and glue to attach the cabinets to each other, and then used clamps and straps to hold them together while they dried. In the meantime, I lightly sanded and painted the metal part of 6 heavy-duty casters so that they wouldn't clash with the finished look of the piece. I also painted a bag of porcelain knobs that I had found at a thrift store some time ago. The next day, I flipped the entire unit and installed the bottom panel. It is 5/8 of an inch plywood cut 6 inches deeper than the cabinets. I installed the casters wherever there was a 2x4. I flipped the unit back up, glued and stapled a piece of 1/4 inch masonite across the back, and glued and screwed the top. Now I could install the trim using 1x2s and 3-inch boards. Again, I used masonite to cover the back and glue and brads to attach the verticals to the top. I filled the gaps with wood putty, ratchet straps to hold it all together while it dried overnight. It was now time to start with the drawers and doors. I dismantled the fronts, labeled everything carefully, and saved all the hardware. I chose not to adhere new material to the oak trim due to its difference in thickness and opted instead for another solution. I pried the oak trim off the fronts and pulled out whatever dowels were left behind. Using a spare door from another cabinet, I ripped and chopped pieces of the same measurements for each drawer and door front. Using the original trim I removed as a guide, I clamped the cut pieces neatly, marked the center of each dowel position, and drilled new holes. This is the part where a drill press would not hurt. Santa, hello! But it turned out well enough for me. I added new dowels and glue where needed and patched the fronts. Then I lightly sanded and cleaned all the pieces. After this, I went back to ripping with the circular saw. I cut 2 1/4 wide-inch strips out of a piece of 2x4 by 1/4 inch underlayment that I had laying around. I glued, taped, and faced them down to let them dry overnight. The next day, I used wood filler, sanded, and primed all the fronts and backs, as well as the main unit. I know when using chalk paint, you don't have to prime a piece of furniture, but I wanted it to last, and because it was all Formica, I thought it would be helpful. I use 1/3 cup of water, 1/3 cup of plaster of Paris, and 1 cup of flat Red Delicious paint by Glidden to make my chalk paint. Everything got 3 coats. I then applied the first layer of clear wax, and while it dried, buffed it with a rag to a light sheen. I repeated the process with the dark wax, but this time I let it dry for an hour and proceeded to lift some areas with a damp lint-free rag in order to give it an aged look. To finish the unit, I made a template out of scrap material for the hardware installation. Measuring carefully, I made a tiny mark in the center of each front once it was screwed onto the drawer front. I lined my mark with the center of my template and drilled where needed. Lastly, I added drawer bumps to all the fronts. The material for the top came from shelves that were built in when I moved into the house. I needed this location for my antique secretary, so I ripped them. After dismantling the shelves, I arranged them on top of the cabinet. I then cut them to size and built the top using my pocket jig. I trimmed the borders, filled, sanded, and stained with 3 coats of Rust-Oleum's Kona stain, which I love. I then installed the top by simply placing it on top of the cabinet. So this is the finished product. I am very happy with the outcome. I most definitely have achieved my goals. I now have a solid, heavy-duty, custom-made piece of furniture for my art supplies and a great conversation piece that can move with me if need be. Best of all, I have managed to keep perfectly sound and working cabinets out of a landfill. Yay! This cabinet rotates on its wheels to give me access to my art wall, which is where I paint and draw. As you might have noticed, you have seen many different backgrounds surrounding this piece. That's because my house is in constant evolution. So I hope you subscribe to my channel if you want to know how I go about things and how they turn out. I hope you found this process interesting and you reach out if you have any questions. And lastly, to my dear lady friends, ladies, don't let anyone ever question your reasons for wanting a chop saw or any other power tool. You can learn how to use them and do wonderful things. You are limitless. Goodbye!